August 6, 1942. Off the northern coast of Guadalcanal, Solomon Islands. The sea is black glass, broken only by the hiss of bow waves and the distant rumble of engines throttled low. On the bridge of the Japanese light cruiser Tenryu, Lieutenant Commander Tanaka Hiroshi grips the railing and peers into the darkness. His eyes ache from hours of staring, pupils stretched wide, straining for the faintest silhouette, a mast awake, a spark of phosphorescence. Night is where the Imperial Japanese Navy has always ruled. For decades, Tanaka was trained to believe this moment would decide battles. Endless drills under moonless skies. Recognition of ship profiles by shadow alone. Torpedo attacks timed by instinct and dead reckoning. The Japanese call it yakinsento, night combat, and they believe no navy on earth can match them. Below decks, sailors whisper confidently. The Americans, they say, are blind after sunset. Clumsy. Loud. Afraid of the dark. Tanaka almost smiles. Somewhere ahead, U.S. ships are rumored to be running supplies into Guadalcanal. If they are there, the Japanese will see them first. They always do. What Tanaka doesn't know, what no one on this bridge truly understands, is that, at this exact moment, an American destroyer 20 kilometers away already knows exactly where he is. On the bridge of USS Helena, a Brooklyn-class light cruiser escorting destroyers off Savo Island, the night feels different. Quieter. More controlled. Lieutenant Commander Charles Cecil, radar officer, leans over a glowing green screen mounted below the bridge canopy. The device hums softly, almost politely. SG Surface Search Radar. A blip blooms on the phosphor screen, sharp, unmistakable. Contact, bearing 075, range 22,000 yards. The words cut through the darkness like a knife. Captain Gilbert Hoover steps closer. He doesn't lift binoculars. He doesn't look at the sea. His eyes lock onto the radar display. How many? Cecil adjusts the scope. More dots appear. A line. Tight formation. At least 4, possibly more, moving south-southeast, speed 20 knots. The Americans don't see the enemy, but they know them. Distance. Course. Speed. Formation. Every second, the radar redraws the picture, updating with mechanical certainty. Outside, the ocean remains empty, inscrutable. But the fight has already begun. Back aboard Tenryu, Tanaka senses unease creeping in. The sea is too quiet. No stars. No moon. He orders a slight course correction, trusting intuition over instruments. Maintain readiness. Long lance torpedoes stand by. The Type 93 torpedo, oxygen-fueled, long-range, devastating, is the pride of the fleet. One well-placed spread can erase an enemy squadron. But torpedoes require sight, timing, judgment. Tanaka scans the horizon again. Nothing. Somewhere out there, American ships should be visible by now. Smoke. Engine glow. Anything. Instead, the darkness stares back. On USS Helena, fire control teams are already working. Radar data feeds directly into plotting tables. Bearings translate into firing solutions. Gun directors align silently. Target solution ready, Cecil reports. Hoover hesitates for half a heartbeat. This is new. Too new. Firing blind feels wrong, almost dishonorable. Naval combat has always been about eyes, skill, and nerve. But doctrine is changing. And tonight, doctrine is winning. Stand by, stand by. A final radar sweep confirms the enemy's course. Open fire. The night explodes. 6-inch guns roar, muzzle flashes ripping holes in the darkness. Shells arc unseen, guided by mathematics instead of vision. Seconds later, orange blossoms erupt on the water. Tenryu's escorts, straddled and hit before they ever spot their attacker. On the Japanese bridge, shock freezes there. Incoming fire, someone shouts. Tanaka stumbles as the ship shudders. A shell punches through the superstructure, shredding steel and men alike. Sparks rain down. Smoke floods the bridge. "How can they see us?" an officer cries. They can't, not with eyes. And that is the terror. Tanaka orders evasive maneuvers, but it feels like running from a ghost. Shells keep falling, accurate, relentless. Japanese lookouts finally glimpse muzzle flashes, far away, impossibly precise. Too precise. The old assumptions crack in Tanaka's mind. This is not luck. This is not chance. Something has changed. As fires spread below decks, and the night fills with screams and steam, one truth becomes unavoidable. The darkness no longer belongs to the Imperial Navy. It belongs to whoever can see without eyes. And tonight, that is the Americans. October 11th, 1942. Cape Esperance, Guadalcanal. The wind carries the smell of burning oil across the water. Wreckage drifts slowly, illuminated by small fires that hiss when waves slap against them. For the Imperial Japanese Navy, the night battle off Guadalcanal has ended in something dangerously unfamiliar: confusion. On the bridge of the heavy cruiser Ayaba, Rear Admiral Godo Aritomo stands rigid, one hand gripping the chart table. Blood trickles down his temple from flying shrapnel. His flagship has been hit repeatedly, shells arriving out of the dark with no warning, no visible attacker. Enemy position. Godo demands. No one answers. Because no one knows. Lookouts scan desperately, binoculars shaking. The sea is empty. No silhouettes. No searchlights. No stars to outline hulls against the horizon. And yet the Americans keep firing, precise, methodical, merciless. This is not how night combat is supposed to work. Hours earlier, Godo had been confident. His force, Ayaba, Furutaka, Kinugasa, escorted by destroyers, was executing a routine bombardment mission. American forces were expected to be disorganized, blind, reliant on flares and luck. Japanese doctrine assumed this as fact. But aboard USS Salt Lake City, cruising silently in the American battle line, Commander William J. McLean watches a radar scope glow steadily. The SG radar paints the Japanese formation as clearly as if it were noon. Every ship, every course change. Fire control teams murmur range data. Gunnery officers no longer shout guesses into the dark, they read numbers. Calm. Certain. When the order to fire comes, the Americans do not hesitate. The first salvos strike Ayaba before the Japanese even realize they have been detected. Admiral Godo tries to regain control. He orders a turn to port, hoping to unmask torpedo tubes. A mistake. The maneuver exposes his ship's profiles exactly as the radar predicts. Shells slam into Furutaka. A destroyer erupts in flame. Radios crackle with panic reports. We are under fire from unseen enemy. For the first time, the words sound hollow even as they are spoken. This is not merely surprise. This is something else entirely. By late 1942, rumors ripple through the Japanese fleet. Ships destroyed at night without warning. Torpedo attacks launched before visual contact. Gunfire arriving from impossible ranges. Some officers scoff. American exaggerations, one captain mutters. Mechanical toys, unreliable. But others are uneasy. Lieutenant Commander Tanaka, transferred after Guadalcanal, hears whispers in wardrooms about invisible American eyes, about ships guided by pulses instead of stars. Radar. The word circulates cautiously, almost superstitiously. Japan has radar, yes, crude sets with limited range and unreliable accuracy. Nothing like this. Nothing capable of directing gunfire through total darkness. To admit that the Americans possess such a weapon is to admit that decades of Japanese night fighting doctrine are suddenly obsolete. And that is unthinkable. November 30th, 1942. Battle of Tassafaronga. The Japanese attempt to prove themselves right. A destroyer force, led by Rear Admiral Reizo Tanaka, one of Japan's finest night commanders, moves down the slot toward Guadalcanal. His ships carry supplies and long lance torpedoes. He trusts speed, training, and darkness. Opposing him is an American cruiser-destroyer group equipped with radar, but inexperienced in its use. This time, when the Americans fire first, their coordination falters. Torpedoes miss. Japanese long lances strike back with terrifying effect. USS Northampton is mortally wounded. For Japanese officers observing the aftermath, relief floods in. See, someone says. Radar does not decide battles, skill does. But the relief is short-lived. Because even in defeat, something is clear. The Americans fired first. They always fire first now. And next time they will do it better. By early 1943, the U.S. Navy has learned from its mistakes. Radar operators train relentlessly. Gunnery doctrine evolves. Destroyers are drilled to trust instruments over instinct. One ship becomes infamous. USS Fletcher-class destroyers, fast and lethal, slip through the night guided by glowing scopes. They detect Japanese ships long before human eyes ever could. Torpedoes are launched from beyond visual range. Gunfire follows, accurate and sudden. Japanese commanders begin issuing grim new orders. Expect enemy contact without warning. Do not rely on visual detection. Radar-equipped ships may engage unseen. These instructions feel like heresy. The night, once Japan's greatest ally, has become hostile ground. On the bridge of a Japanese destroyer in the central Solomons, Tanaka now watches darkness with suspicion instead of comfort. Every shadow could hide an enemy already tracking him. Every calm horizon could be a lie. The stars no longer reassure. Somewhere out there, an American radar antenna sweeps silently, painting his ship in invisible light. The blindfold has been torn away, and the realization is spreading through the Imperial Navy, ship by ship, officer by officer. Night no longer protects those who can see. It exposes those who cannot. July 5, 1943. Kula Gulf, Central Solomons. The sea is calm, almost deceptively peaceful. A thin mist hangs low over the water, blurring the line between ocean and sky. On the bridge of the Japanese destroyer Nizuki, flagship of Rear Admiral Akiyama Teruo, red instrument lights glow faintly over charts and compass repeaters. Akiyama is uneasy. This is supposed to be a routine mission, another high-speed Tokyo Express run, racing troops down the slot under cover of darkness. For years, these night dashes have kept Japanese positions alive. Speed, darkness, discipline. But tonight, something feels wrong. There is no moon, no wind, and yet Akiyama feels watched. At nearly the same moment, aboard USS Helena, the sensation is entirely different. The American cruiser glides through the dark with quiet confidence. Below the bridge, the SG radar pulses steadily, sweeping the horizon in invisible arcs. Each return paints a precise picture, 6 contacts, then 7. Formation tight. Speed high. Multiple targets, the radar operator reports. Range 27,000 yards, bearing 180. The Americans smile grimly. They have them. Fire control solutions are calculated long before a single Japanese lookout glimpses danger. Gunnery officers murmur numbers. Turret motors whine softly as barrels align. Stand by, stand by. On Nizuki, a lookout suddenly shouts. Gun flashes to the north. It is already too late. USS Helena opens fire with a devastating radar-directed barrage. 6-inch shells scream across the darkness, landing with impossible precision. The first salvos strike Nizuki squarely on the bridge. The explosion is instantaneous. Akiyama and his staff are obliterated in a white-hot flash. The destroyer veers wildly, leaderless, flames pouring from shattered superstructure. Japanese ships scatter, firing blindly into the night. Searchlights snap on, a fatal instinct, turning hulls into glowing targets. Radar does not need light. American destroyers surge forward, guided by instruments alone. Torpedoes are launched without ever seeing the enemy. Moments later, massive detonations tear through Japanese hulls. The sea fills with fire and debris. The Japanese fight back with desperate skill. USS Helena is struck by long lance torpedoes, ripped apart amidships. She breaks in two, burning fiercely as sailors scramble into oil-slicked water. But the battle's outcome is already clear. Even in losing a ship, the Americans have shattered another Japanese night force. Because the pattern repeats again and again. First contact, American radar. First shots, American guns. Japanese reactions come only after the damage is done. By the summer of 1943, Japanese after-action reports grow bleak. Enemy detection precedes visual contact. Gunfire accurate without illumination. Night no longer confers advantage. These are not excuses. They are admissions. Officers raised to trust eyesight and instinct now feel blind. Radar sets aboard Japanese ships are unreliable, easily jammed, often incapable of guiding weapons. Training lags. Doctrine resists change. And time is running out. August 6, 1943. Vela Gulf. This time the Americans perfect the ambush. 6 U.S. destroyers, equipped with radar and drilled relentlessly in night fighting, intercept a Japanese destroyer squadron attempting another supply run. The Americans never turn on searchlights. They never reveal themselves. Radar tracks everything. Torpedoes are launched from ambush positions. Minutes later, 3 Japanese destroyers explode in succession, their fuel and ammunition detonating spectacularly. Not a single American ship is hit. For Japanese survivors clinging to wreckage, the night feels like a trap, silent, suffocating, and cruel. The sea that once protected them has become an executioner. In wardrooms and command centers across the Imperial Navy, the truth is no longer debated. American radar has not merely improved night fighting. It has erased it as Japan understood it. Skill, training, and courage still matter, but only if you can survive long enough to use them. And now, survival depends on something the Japanese cannot match in time. Machines that see in the dark. As autumn approaches, Japanese commanders issue final, reluctant acknowledgments. Enemy radar superiority decisive. The night no longer favors us. The words are written stiffly, reluctantly, but they are final. The darkness, once Japan's greatest weapon, has changed sides, and it will never come back. October 25, 1943. Off Empress Augusta Bay, Bougainville. Rain falls in thin sheets, tapping against steel decks and turning the night into a moving veil. The sea reflects nothing, no moon, no stars, no horizon. On the bridge of the Japanese heavy cruiser Myoko, Captain Ami Shigeharu listens to the steady beat of engines and feels an unfamiliar tension settle into his chest. This is no longer the night he was trained for. The order is simple: intercept American forces supporting landings on Bougainville. A classic mission. Darkness. Surprise. Speed. But no one on this bridge believes in those words anymore. 100 kilometers away, USS Charles Osborne, a Fletcher-class destroyer, cuts through the rain at flank speed. Her radar mast turns steadily, indifferent to whether darkness or fear. On the radar scope, the Japanese formation appears like ghosts made solid. Cruisers, destroyers, courses plotted cleanly despite the storm. Targets confirmed, the operator reports calmly. Range decreasing, enemy unaware. Captain Burke, 31-knot Burke, nods once. Execute attack. There is no drama in the order. No raised voice. No searchlights. Just quiet confidence. The Americans strike first again. Radar-directed gunfire walks across Japanese ships with clinical precision. Shells punch through superstructures. Fires ignite. Confusion spreads instantly through the Japanese line as reports flood in. We are under fire, enemy unseen. Ami feels the old reflex surge. Illuminate, identify, retaliate. But he hesitates. Searchlights mean death now. Instead, he orders evasive maneuvers, but radar predicts those too. American destroyers shift position effortlessly, staying outside visual range, maintaining contact no matter how violently the Japanese turn. This is not a duel. It is a hunt. For Japanese sailors, the experience is uniquely horrifying. There is no warning flash, no visible enemy, only the sudden impact of shells, the tearing scream of steel, the smell of cordite and burning paint. Men shout into darkness, firing at nothing. American shells keep coming. Within an hour, the Japanese force withdraws, battered and shaken. The Americans remain in control of the sea, unseen, untouched. When the rain finally eases, it reveals only wreckage and retreating wakes. By late 1943, the Imperial Japanese Navy quietly abandons the idea of decisive night surface battles. The doctrine that once defined them, the belief that superior training and eyesight could overcome material disadvantage, is dead. Radar has killed it. In Tokyo, staff officers acknowledge the obvious in tightly worded memoranda. The Americans see first, fire first, decide first. No amount of courage can overcome that equation. Production cannot catch up. Training cannot adapt fast enough. The war has moved on without them. Some Japanese veterans later speak of the change in personal terms. The night used to feel like a friend, one destroyer officer recalls. After radar, it felt like an enemy. American sailors feel it too, the strange reversal. Darkness no longer means danger. It means advantage, safety, control. On radar screens, the ocean is never empty again. As 1944 approaches, the Pacific War shifts decisively toward air power and submarines. Great surface night battles fade away, not because men lose the will to fight, but because technology has rewritten the rules. The Japanese once believed night fighting was an art. The Americans turned it into a science. And science does not blink.